Is that too loud for you? Yeah, baby, turn it down on your headphones. Well, actually, I gotta get you on the mic. So do a couple tests for me.
Testing 1 2 3. That's better. Testing 1 2 3.
Right.
Testing 1 2 3.
Ray, how are you?
Testing 1 2 3. Testing 1 2 3.
Real quick, what was your you and Ray's conversation in the truck last week that you might want to bring up again?
Poverty.
Sure. Okay.
We were talking about poverty. We were talking about rent.
Yeah,
How
we
it's
were talking
hard.
about the issues that.
Are you live on Instagram or TikTok yet?
Oh, not yet. What is it? Where's that little thing? Is this?
Yeah.
What does this do?
That's a microphone that's going to pick us all up. Barely, but
Okay. No, what we were talking about is with inflation going up, this is why I wanted to raise insight, because we're all, like you said, a couple of TikToks, videos ago, we all come from different levels, but both of us are, really struggling to keep ends meet when rent goes up, food prices have gone up, gas has gone up, everything is being affected, and it's hard for you to get ahead. And then I'll mention this, there was one report that came out today that I think it was in the Wall Street Journal that an individual American lost $3,400 annually, and for a family it was $6,000 annually because of all these inflationary pressures.
yeah. Okay. All right. So we are going to go. Are you live yet? So let me know when you're live so I can start streaming.
Okay, I'm going to go live right now.
Oh, actually, we are streaming so I can start recording.
It's live now.
Okay, ready? We're going to go in 3, 2.
Hey everybody, this is John with Ubaldi Report, the one website.
I'm sorry, stop. I kind of recording a little bit. Do it one more time. 3, 2.
Hey everybody, this is John with Ubaldi Report, the one website and news service that provides fact, not fiction, on issues impacting America, whether internationally or domestically. And this is coming from veterans, two Marine combat veterans, and one Marine that retired on medically retired. But this is all veterans
Yes.
discussing issues that impact Americans. Now, just so you let you know, we're going to be talking about, inflation, the economy, and oil. But when we talk about these issues, especially when we talk about inflation, this isn't done in a vacuum.
Mhm.
This isn't something like, I'm saying this, but I'm making all this money. I'm struggling just like everybody else. I had to work at a fast food restaurant after my business cratered. I'm trying to get it back again. So I'm directly impacted by higher inflation, higher food prices, higher rent, higher gas prices. So I just want to preface that this is hurting everybody, including myself.
So, John, actually, I got a little bit of a story that happened to me today.
All right, go Big Joe. Before we get going,
Yeah, go ahead.
I'd like to introduce my other co-host, Joe Bitts, who's a combat Marine from Iraq, and Ray Krause, who's a Marine medically retired from having, was it pneumonia?
Yes.
Pneumonia, but he's still a Marine nonetheless. So this is all coming from 3 enlisted Marines. So what was your question, Joe?
Okay, well, it's not really a question, but so, yeah, today, actually a couple days ago, my dishwasher decided to crap out on me, and we decided to take it over to the repairman. The repairman comes over, he looks at it, nothing I can do for you. I was like, okay, well, guess what? I guess it's time to buy a new dishwasher. I should have listened to my wife when she first mentioned that, but I was like, you know what? I'm just trying to save this thing because I don't want to spend any more money than I have to. So I took it over and we went to Lowe's. Now, Lowe's and Home Depot, they both offer a 10% military discount.
Okay.
So I went up there and I go, okay, well, I'm ready to buy a dishwasher. And the guy's like, you're never ready to buy a dishwasher. If you're here, you're not planning on getting a dishwasher, you're getting a dishwasher. And I was like, okay, well, this is the one. It kind of fell in our price range. So I was like, okay, well, good. I'm military, I get a discount. And he's like, no, you don't.
What do you mean?
Well, on appliances, they've changed their policy where you don't get a 10% discount on certain appliances, dishwasher being one of them, because, well, one, you don't pay taxes on it in the state of Florida. You don't pay taxes on it to begin with. But also, by offering a military discount, it's cutting into their margins so much. Now, it's cutting into their margins so much because of what's going on that they have had to adjust where they no longer offer military discount on certain appliance
Are you
items.
talking about because inflation has gone up?
Yes, and it's cutting, and because getting a 10% discount, so I look at maybe, say I pay $700, $800 for a new dishwasher, that's $80 off. That's cutting into their profit to a point where they're just like, we're not going to do that anymore because it's cutting you, because it's cutting you off, it's cutting into our profits. So that's how inflation is affecting, well, me, even though I'm able to afford a dishwasher, still, the military discount is not being applied anymore.
Okay, but what you just said, so you're able to afford it. How many people out there aren't able to afford it? Now, the CPI came out today, the Consumer Price Index, and many economists were expecting it was going to be bad, 8.8.
Mm-hmm.
Came out at 9.1.
Yeah.
So it was the worst inflation levels in over 40 years.
But is it Carter inflation?
We're getting into that level.
What is Carter inflation? I have a theory on this somewhere.
Inflation got up under Jimmy Carter. The highest I think it got was 13, 14%.
Okay, no, I want to note this. I want to put this on the record here on New Baldy Reports. That when it does get up to that 13 area and it surpasses that Jimmy Carter will officially pass away in peace, knowing that he is not the worst president.
Well, I think but I even think before that. Right now, President Biden has the worst approval rating of any first-term president, at least in the modern era.
Well, not according to him, though, right?
Well, he took something when he was asked by a reporter saying, majority of 2/3 of all, 64% of all Democrats don't want me to run. And what he said is, no, they don't. 92% would vote for me. What he was taking is if the challenger was Donald Trump,
Mm-hmm.
then 92% would vote for Joe Biden. But if it was anybody else, that wouldn't be the factor. But I think now he has even a worse approval rating than Donald Trump did at this time. But you got to remember, at that time, Donald Trump was going through the Russian conspiracy. You
Mm-hmm.
had all these issues affecting it into that midterm.
So why aren't they seeing maybe that Trump is not going to be the contender in 2024? Why aren't they seeing that? Because you and I, and maybe even Ray, are seeing somebody different, and the media, if they were smart, should be focusing on this person, but they're not. They're actually they're like, oh yeah, Donald Trump, he's going to be the person that's going to be running in 2024. And I don't think that's the case. I think that Ron DeSantis is just going to come out of nowhere and be like, yeah, guess what? I'm running for president. And he is going to win a lot, especially going up to Biden when Biden's like, oh yeah, I'm going to run anyway. I don't care.
The thing is, I think what right now is the Democrats. That's why they're pushing the January 6th hearings. They want to keep it going.
Yeah.
Because they want to use the boogeyman of Donald Trump. They think it galvanizes their base. The problem is, both sides do it. They want to galvanize their base on the Republican side. The Democrats want to galvanize their base on the obviously the Democratic side. The problem is you can't win an election with your base only. The independents, the way the independents go, for 2020 they broke for the Democrats. In 2016 they broke for the Republicans. But this time the issues that most Americans are concerned about is the economy, inflation, gas prices, and now you're seeing crime as being an issue. What happened in New York City, where a bodega, I think it's pronounced that way, bodega worker was physically assaulted, and he was defending himself, and he unfortunately stabbed somebody and killed them after he was trying he didn't want any trouble, but yet he's charged, and the original bail was $500,000, and he was sent to Rikers Island until he was, a judge said, wait guys, you guys can't do that. So they reduced it down, I think, to $5,000, so he was bonded out. But he still potentially could face charges. The girlfriend who started it all, because her EBT card failed, she gets her boyfriend, and she said, I didn't do anything, I didn't assault anybody. The video shows she was stabbing this guy, and she's not being charged. The person who was killed was had numerous felony convictions, and the latest one was for assaulting a police officer. So I think people see these things and it's just they're getting angry.
All right,
Yeah.
so I want to break a little bit because Ray, he reads off our TikTok. So what do you got to say, Ray?
So Chunky Matty, he chimed in and said Biden is a puppet at this point. He's not capable of running anything.
That's a point that some people are seeing because you're seeing they think it's either Susan Rice, the domestic policy advisor. You're seeing Ron Klein, the chief of staff. There are many people believe Biden is not in charge, and the greatest example was last week when he was dealing with the abortion issue, doing an executive action.
Yeah.
One of the comments was, "Read quote again," and he read, "Read quote again."
Yeah.
So it's kind of getting to that point. You kind of wonder, now you have aides are really hand holding him. Like an example, he's flying to Saudi Arabia, but he was already in Europe. He could have just went to Saudi Arabia from there. But they brought him back so they can rest him up
Okay.
before they went over. So there is speculation that others are running the show beyond just Joe Biden.
Go on, Ray.
So I wanna keep reading up on here. I'm gonna get to you, Willowbrook, Wanda, in a second. But Chunky Matty said we need a real leader. The action is already in Trigger's laws, though. They taking credit for what's already there.
It depends what law they're talking about, but they are seem to take credit for things that happened before they got there. Like an example, President Biden claims that he had the best economy, and even his press spokesman said that he had the best economy ever. It's not really accurate. Yeah, unemployment has come down. Yeah, all these jobs are come back, but these were jobs that were already lost. We're still about 1 million jobs short of where we are before February 2020. And then if you look at the latest job report that came out last Friday from the Commerce Department, the Bureau of Labor Statistics, it still showed that labor participation rate is flatlined. It's been the same for months. So we're not gaining any new jobs. These are jobs that are just coming back. So you're basically still $1 million. You're in the negative right now. You're not above where we were February 2020.
Okay, so I want to get, Chunky Matty, I do see that you're coming in on suppose. I do want to go back to this really quick. Willowbrook Wanda stated that New York is all about the criminals. And I do want to touch about that because hopefully, just like you just said, hopefully the Bruin versus New York, hopefully we can get some sort of resolve where, as we see time and time again, we see the prosecutors being lenient on murderers and violent offenders and law-abiding citizens who want to protect themselves from such individuals. Hopefully things kind of turn from, just always making sure the criminals are in a safe haven up there.
No, you make a good point, and that's where I think the DA's name is, I can't think of his first name. His name is Bragg. And that's why he's all about no cash bail. But then all of a sudden he gave $500,000 to this individual. Clearly said he didn't want any trouble. And he was pushed. And this guy was, I think, 62. This other guy was half his age. And he clearly defended himself. His girlfriend was involved. She didn't get charged. This guy was a repeat felon. And unfortunately, he was killed, and he said, "I apologize. I'm sorry, but." And I don't understand why you're rewarding the criminal, but you punish the victim.
Right.
And that's not lost on the people of New York City.
So before we get into Beach Baby, can you talk about what Chunky Matty said on the last one?
So I'm gonna continue to follow up. The last one I was on was they taking credit for what's already there. The next one is the abortion order he signed is already in the laws in states banning abortion.
You're talking the abortion bill that President Biden signed?
I'm gonna guess. I'm gonna assume so. Yes.
Oh, this is where the Democrats can probably overreach, is what the Supreme Court said is abortion is not a right in the Constitution. It's not a right in the Constitution, and it's not a right in any state constitution. Now, if the Democrats wanted to codify that, they had 50 years to do that. Now, they can say the Republicans wouldn't go along with it. Well, there are periods from the time they passed abortion in 1973, they had a supermajority. From 1973 to 1981, the Democrats controlled both the House and the Senate. They had the Senate Republicans had the Senate for about 6 years. They lost it in '86. Then, when Bill Clinton came along, they had the House and the Senate and the executive by wide margins. When Barack Obama took office in 2009, they had a supermajority in the Senate. A supermajority in the House and a veto-proof majority in the Senate. They could have easily said abortion's now the law of the land and made it so, but they didn't do that. All the Supreme Court said is abortion's illegal at the national level, but you, the states, make a determination at what level of abortion do you support or what level of abortion don't you support. As examples, do you believe in late-term abortion? Do you believe in abortion upon demand? Do you believe in abortion up until the time of birth? Do you believe that a 16-year-old girl who gets pregnant can get an abortion without parental consent?
Mm-hmm.
These are issues that never were flushed out. All the states are saying, the court said is, you flush it out. Don't make us legislators. That's not our job. That's Congress's job or the state legislature. That's what democracy is under the Constitution.
Why don't you go into Beach Baby?
So I'm going to go Beach Baby. The first question, wouldn't that make bail reform a point in the next election? And that's referring back to the criminals up in New York and such.
Well, Mayor Adams went to Albany to discuss this with the Governor Hochul, who was the Democratic governor who took over from Andrew Cuomo, who was had to step down because of his allegations of the things that he did. And she refused to do bail reform. And what they did is no cash bail. They figured this was better to be more equitable because of the systemic racism in our American culture. But what it did, it had a negative impact. Crime skyrocketed because you're not charging people for low-level crime. They're going to lead to a bigger crime. And the criminals feel they can get away with everything. And we're seeing this in this case with this, what is it, not barista, that one worker that was, that one convenient worker. I can't think of that. What the heck is that term called? Well, anyway, the one guy that was charged for killing that individual that assaulted him, and he didn't want any trouble, and he gets killed, and this guy was a repeat offender. So it's going to come down to the voters. The voters are going to have to make a decision. Do you want law and order? We're seeing crime where a 14-year-old gets stabbed and killed. Look what happened in Philadelphia. Larry Krasner, the DA in that city, you had 7 young children, young teenagers, took traffic cones and killed a 73-year-old man.
Mm-hmm.
And then when I found out later, 2 of them turned themselves in. One was 10 and one was 14. What was a 10-year-old and 14-year-old doing out at 2 o'clock in the morning?
Oh, well, also when they were getting arrested, there were a 2- and 3-year-old beating up or hitting the cops as they were arresting the kids at that point. So Beach Baby had some more to add on to, especially after when she was talking about Biden. What was she saying?
So can you explain how Biden's executive order can be binding with the judicial branch overturning Roe?
Well, that's something the courts are going to have to decide, because the president can make executive orders, but he's limited in the domestic side. Most of the executive orders that give him wide latitude is foreign policy and defense. The Constitution's clear on that. In this case, this will probably have to go to the Supreme Court if it gets to that again. And the courts have said it's not our job, and it's not the executive branch to make these laws. You can't make a law. You can't do that.
Right.
And a lot of these, and this executive order, it depends how long it takes to get to the courts, will go away with the next president. Let's say it happens to be Republican. He can just say, we're not doing it. But see, what the Supreme Court said is, Congress, do your job. It's just like with immigration.
Mm-hmm. Some
conservatives were against that the Supreme Court ruled that the remain in Mexico as you await your asylum claim was illegal, unconstitutional. And what the court said is that's not the executive branch's job to make laws and change laws. Congress, do your job on immigration. Congress, do your job if this is what you want to do on the abortion or anything, or even what the EPA did. The EPA overstepped its mandate because Congress never gave them the mandate to make it and change the law. Basically, the executive agencies, they just enforce the laws that were written by Congress, and that's what our Constitution is about, not unelected bureaucrats making decisions how things are going to react.
So going back to kind of finishing up her question, Beach Baby said, does that go against the checks and balances of the government branches?
It does, and that's what the Supreme Court ruled on abortion. Everybody got so caught up on the abortion issue. What it said is, everybody stay in your lane. We stay in our lane. We just review whether it's constitutional or not. The executive branch, you just enforce the laws that Congress passed and you sign. And Congress, you debate these things openly and decide these things. That's your job, not pawn it off to an executive or an imperial president.
So, kind of before we get off this abortion talk, because this was kind of something we kind of fell into, but to get out of it, how many states in the United States have made abortion illegal?
I would have to go back. I'm not sure that. I mean, I'm not sure that.
Texas, Mississippi.
Well, Mississippi, all they said is abortion after 15 weeks.
Okay.
Is in most states, like Florida, which we're in, can't get an abortion after 15 weeks. Now, if you look at Europe, Europe has more restrictive abortions than we do.
Mm-hmm.
Now, some states have trigger laws. I think Texas was one, I think. And there's others, and Oklahoma may be one. So
I think
I'm not,
Minnesota was one?
I'm not sure what, but it still goes back to
Or maybe
let
Missouri.
the states make the decision. Not every state is going to remain Republican. Not every state's going to remain Democrat. Let the voters make that decision, like the Constitution was set up for.
So, let's see. Chunky Maddie had a good question, especially maybe kind of ramp us into a different topic. But do you think the Dems will expand a court to push their laws?
They're always trying to. This is why this election is important, because right now it's 50-50. And so far, Kristen Sinema, the Democratic senator from Arizona, and Joe Manchin, the Democratic senator from West Virginia, was against it. Because they look at down the road. Because once you cross that threshold, who's to say that when Republicans take the Senate and the executive, they'll do the same thing, expand the court?
Well, the whole thing is they got to get rid of the filibuster. And the thing is like, if anything, if the nuclear option has taught us anything, is that sure, go ahead, try to get rid of it. And then when the Republicans, after the dismal display that the Democrats are currently doing right now, and there's not a Democrat leading or not a Democratic majority Congress or Senate for a while, the Congress is just going to railroad every single law that they feel necessary in there, and it's going to be maybe more detrimental if they just left it alone.
It's interesting. And Joe Manchin, his response was, he didn't want this done by partisan politics. And then if you look at one of the things, like Elizabeth Warren, she wants to end the filibuster because the court didn't rule her way.
Mm-hmm.
And even I know I mentioned, like Jonathan Turley, another constitutional scholar, said that's democracy.
Yeah.
There are rules. Like I thought when the Supreme Court ruled elements of Obamacare was constitutional, I thought that wasn't. I didn't agree with that. But I'm not going to say let's pack the court. Things go my way, things don't go my way.
Mm-hmm.
But when it's almost like you're crying like a baby. I didn't get my way because they didn't go my way. We got to pack the court. And the filibuster, and it's kind of ironic, Joe Biden was one of them, and so was even Barack Obama said, we got to keep the filibuster to protect minority rights.
Mm-hmm.
Then now when they're in the majority, they don't like the filibuster because they look at it as a term of Jim Crow. And it's just, to me, it's very disingenuous when you throw race into it.
Yeah.
When before you're on record saying we need to keep the filibuster.
So I kind of want to branch off a little bit off topic, but kind of go back into maybe what we talked about earlier. But so I kind of had like a little bit of a proud dad moment, and I was keep on looking at TikToks, and they kind of like hit these people up, college kids. People are going to college, and they hit them up with questions. Who was this person? or what's this person? And one of the questions was, who was the first president of the United States? And a lot of people going to college didn't know, and I'm like, well, you know what? I have a daughter, she's under the age of like 6. I want to ask her a question. And I totally thought maybe she wouldn't know. Maybe she was more concerned with her LOL dolls or whatever's on like
Okay.
YouTube Kids at the time. And I look at her and I go, hey, who is the president of the United States? And I totally dismissed the whole, before I even asked that question, I dismissed it as she's not going to know. And she goes, George Washington. You know how proud of a dad I was? And to the point where now that I showed her how proud I was of her knowing that, is that every time, hey Dad, you want to ask me a question? What question do you want to ask me? Do you want to ask me who the first president of the United States was? And I'm just like, absolutely. And even to the point where, like, even if I'm like, hey, who is the current president of the United States? Even if she says Joe Biden, as much as I not really favor this president, I would be so proud that she knew that answer.
Well, but see, a lot of the problems, and I had talked to a friend of mine who was a retired history teacher, just retired this past school year.
Mm-hmm.
And I know your daughter is a history major at college.
Yes.
The problem is, and I used to talk every week about this, is history is not a subject that you be tested on.
Mm-hmm.
Now, I worked at Chick-fil-A, and we had a lot of people that were immigrants
Mm-hmm.
working at Chick-fil-A, and some of them were studying for their citizenship test, and I
Yeah.
would help them study for their citizenship test.
Okay.
I bet you give that citizenship test to the majority, most Americans, they'd fail.
Okay.
Most Americans don't know their own history. We're seeing it now, where they rail against our founders. They don't know true American history. Now, remember when we all probably remember this, the pandemic happened? Well, a friend of mine is a single mother. She was going to nursing school.
Mm-hmm.
So she goes, John, can you help me get some food so at least have it, because there's going to be this shutdown? It didn't click
Yeah.
in my mind. And I said, okay. So I go down to the local grocery store, and I'm like, why is there so many cars here at 2 in the afternoon?
Mm-hmm.
So I go in there, and everybody's ripping things off the shelf, and it still didn't click. So the president's going to call martial, until I went over to, what do you call it, Walgreens to get her some medication. And one of the clerks was telling me, one of the customers came in and said, the president is going to say he's going to put troops into the streets. And I go, time out. Let me explain how this all works.
Yeah.
So I had to explain how a president would bring in forces. I said, if the city can't handle it, they go to the state. If the state can't handle it, they call the president.
Yeah.
He brings all the federal resources in. When it comes to the federalization of troops, it changed a lot after Hurricane Katrina,
Mm-hmm.
because federal troops can't go into certain areas. Now, we've done it in our past with civil rights in the 50s and 60s, and I think the last time they used federal troops to this magnitude was 1992 during their LA riots. But the point is, if you use federal troops, because when we were in the Marines, I don't report to a governor. It's all who has authority. But when they give them a lane now to use, they work with the state, but they just report to the president. So the president doesn't have this ultimate power to just ram things through. That's what our Constitution's for. That's why during the pandemic, the governors had more power to do certain things than a president does. And it's just funny because most Americans don't understand how their government works. Like the Supreme Court ruling the way it did on abortion. What does the Constitution, how many people even know what the Federalist Papers are? We've had Mazie Hirono made a strange comment about, she's a Democratic senator from Hawaii, made a strange comment about the Constitution. It's like, you're kidding me, right?
Mm-hmm.
You don't know this stuff?
But was that done by design so that the people who are in power now can get away with whatever they want?
Yeah, I think.
But the other part of all this is, today, unlike back in the past, and Joe Biden is a product of this, Joe Biden is the first president in U.S. history who spent more than 15 years in one particular office, the U.S. Senate. He had 36 years in the Senate.
Mm-hmm.
the founders and the previous presidents up until recent time have spent time outside of public office. So they had more of a diverse background. This is, I think, when we talked about early on about the economy, Joe Biden has never done anything except be a senator and vice president in his life.
Yeah, he knows how to spend money, not save
But
money.
see, even when you're a senator, you give speeches, you help pass bills, you study things, but you never implement that. That's somebody else to do. And a lot of his administration has never done anything outside of government. So that's why you take Pete Buttigieg, the Secretary of Transportation. He's more worried about equity and diversity, but what about the supply chain problems? What about, what do you call it, the baby food formula? All these issues are in his realm.
Mm-hmm.
Secretary of Labor. Then you have the Secretary of Energy, didn't even know how many barrels of oil American uses every day.
Yeah.
So you have people that are in positions. Look at Javier Becerra, the Director of Health and Human Services for baby formula. The FDA falls under his department.
Yeah.
But yet why do we have a baby food shortage? Did you know about this? Did you ask questions that you shut down a plant that produces over 40% of all baby formula?
Mm-hmm.
But nobody's held these people accountable because they've never done anything outside government.
And they probably won't, because once the new administration kind of kicks in or takes over, they're just going to maybe just scatter, and they're just like, maybe they're just like a lost leader, lost cause.
Well, there was an article in the Washington Examiner that talked about that. Once they leave office, these staffers, these unelected bureaucrats, they go back into Washington working for a policy center, a law firm, a communications thing. And then when they say a Democrat gets back in, they move back in.
Yeah.
So it's interesting. They're all about, I want to see Trump's tax returns. I would love to see the tax returns of all these individuals. How did you make all this money when a salary for a current senator is about close to $200,000? How are all these senators millionaires?
So, kind of round it up a little bit, is that our president is currently going over to Saudi to kind of, I guess, barter or ask for them to increase oil production, and as well as he released, was it 1 million or 9 million barrels?
It's going to be 50 million barrels from a 6 million. It's from a 6
to a China company.
No, not 50. It's 50 million barrels, I think, total.
Okay.
Over a 6-month period. He released, I think, 5 million barrels to, I think it was around there. I think so much, I think it's like 1 million or plus went to China.
Okay.
And it went to an energy company that Hunter Biden was part of.
Now, why is there there's nothing to see here, folks, kind of situation?
That's a good question, because flip the switch. Had that been Donald Trump, sent oil that was in the Strategic Petroleum Reserve to China, that would have been all over everybody would have been howling to the highest yard arm. But what President Biden is doing, he's going to Saudi Arabia. He already said that it was a pariah state. Now, I talked to a gentleman that's in the Army. He's in Special Forces, and he's in command, one of the major commands down here in Tampa. And we talked about this, and I go, okay, I understand what Saudi Arabia did to Khashoggi, was that reporter that was killed in Turkey.
Mm-hmm.
There was other ways to do this. The world doesn't act the way we want them to act.
Yeah.
We could have done things differently, but the way Biden did it, he's alienated them. Now he's begging them, and then he's going to make a mistake saying we're not going to. One of the things he came up, and I was talking with somebody at work about this. His doctor says don't shake anybody's hands because of COVID,
Mm-hmm.
but he's shaking everybody else's hands before he gets to Saudi Arabia. But in the Arab world, that's an extreme insult, than not to shake the hands of everybody you meet there.
Yeah.
But the case in point is, you're asking Saudi Arabia to increase oil production, and President Macron of France said Saudi Arabia can't. They're at 95, almost 96% capacity.
Yeah.
So why are you asking Saudi Arabia to increase oil production, but you refuse to do it here?
Yep.
And then you ship this oil to China, and then about 2 weeks ago you met with the wind producers, wind farm producers, but you refused to meet with the energy producers, and you had your Secretary of Energy meet with them.
Yeah.
So you just can't have it both ways. Why not create jobs here? And
Yeah.
we can release this energy And it's kind of ironic. I know everybody wants to beat up on the guy. This is what exactly Donald Trump said. He goes, at some point, Russia's going to hold you hostage. What they're doing now. Now, we've cut back a lot of energy from Russia, but Europe had to transition over to coal. What's going to happen when winter shows up?
Mm-hmm.
Are they going to say we can't do that? We need heat. They're going to need natural gas from Russia. And Trump said we can set up we can give you all the natural gas you want.
Mm-hmm.
We have a couple hundred years of this stuff, but we're so tied to this green movement. Look what happened in Sri Lanka. One of the reasons that government collapsed because they went all green, and it impacted the working class. Same riots are happening all over Europe, Netherlands, and Denmark, all because they're pushing this woke green agenda before the technology is ready, and the working class aren't taking it anymore.
So one thing I'm glad about is that I live in Florida.
But the point that you brought up is this energy company in China. Why isn't there more investigation of Hunter Biden's business dealings in China? Because right now, remember during the campaign, President Biden said that I'm going to hold China accountable. He hasn't done it.
Mm-hmm.
The Speaker of the House, Nancy Pelosi, hasn't held one hearing, or the Senate under Chuck Schumer, on the origins of the coronavirus. Why?
Yeah. So before we sign off, I do have something I like to call a John moment, but there was also a Joe moment at the same time. Was that after many years and many memes that I've seen I call up John. I go, hey John, I know how to make a meme finally, and John comes back with me. He goes, I finally know what a meme means. So,
God, you guys are old.
yeah.
Shut up!
All right. So, John, how can they go ahead and get a hold of you?
They can get a hold of us by going to Ubaldi, John at UbaldiReports@gmail.com. That's UbaldiReports@gmail.com.
Awesome.
Or you can go to all our social media platforms as Twitter, Instagram, Facebook, TikTok,
Truth.
and Truth, and
Parlor.
and
Getter.
Getter.
Yeah.
So you can go in all these places, check us out.
Oh, Rumble.
And Rumble, we're on Rumble. I'm trying to learn all these social media platforms.
I got to write them down for you.
Yeah, pretty much. But I mean, keep following Ubaldi Reports. We do appreciate all the questions that come in. I hope we try to answer them all.
Mm-hmm.
And our goal is to do this on a full-time basis, which means we do this every day, and then we'll post the link that day. So
Yep.
we can, especially as we gear up for the midterm, we just want to keep everybody informed. You may not agree with everything I said or we said. That's not the point. The point is you make a decision how you want to go and go from that way. That's all we do. And
Okay.
we don't insult anybody on this platform. So keep listening to Ubaldi Reports.
I want to correct that. You don't say anything insulting on this
Okay.
platform. It doesn't fall for Ray and I. but
Okay. These two.
We joke around in the background.
Ray, how can they get a hold of you? And give them some of your services as well.
So you can get a hold of me at raymond.aags@gmail.com. We could talk anything Second Amendment related. I went to Colorado School of Trades gunsmithing school, so I am a certified gunsmith. So we could talk about customizing your firearms. We could talk about gun control, whatever you want to bring up. So that's how you get a hold of me.
And so Ray and I, we do a podcast off this. It's called All American Gunslingers. It's where we kind of talk a little bit more other stuff other than politics. We do go on a political rant every once a month. We are limited to that. You might want to catch one of those, but normally we talk about guns, whiskey, cigars, guy stuff. If you're interested, and you can get a hold of that on All American Gunslingers on Instagram, on Twitter, on Facebook, on Truth, on Getter, and then we have a live stream that is an hour before this live stream at 6:30 on Wednesday, and you can catch that on Twitch, you can catch that on Facebook, you can catch that on Twitter, you can catch that on YouTube, a lot of stuff like that. So
We're getting it up.
Yeah, we like to get you over here, and then sometimes we can get John over there, and he can kind of go a little off the cuff when it comes to politics.
There you go.
And we will talk to you guys soon.
All right, keep following Ubaldi Reports.